How to ABX Silent Season 9/17/2023. It is Female Villain Day. So, rotation I'm going to be using is with Jean Grey. Jean Grey with her Dark Phoenix uniform. I have a rage on her. You basically spam everything. Let me show you it in action. You want to stick around, I'll give you more info. Been doing these for a while. I'm just trying to share the rotations that are used, different ideas that you can use for different days. Hopefully they're helpful, and if they are, yeah, stick around. Cool. Switching right to Jean. Then I'm going to go 4, 2, 1, 5 for a second, 3 for a second, 7 as soon as it's ready. Everything you're going to use as soon as it's ready. The only thing really to keep an eye out for is your cancels. Make sure you have your skills on cooldown so you can pull your cancels off. And if you're going to do the 2, if there are enemies around besides for the beast, you will run away from the beast. So try to cancel 2 into another skill as soon as possible. Everything is almost instantly cancelable. Even the 6, you don't have to wait for the wings to pop. I've had arguments with people online. I've actually got a video showing why you don't necessarily need to wait for the wings to pop, and the score difference is not a lot, but you do score a little bit more if you do not wait for the wings to pop. Pay attention to your roar timers. You can cancel today with 4 or 6. You do not need to use your striker for canceling. 209 right here. That's when you're canceling. So basically, as soon as he's targetable, you can pop your 4. You can use your 6 if your 6 is ready. The 6 is a little bit late on the cancel there, so just make sure you're doing it early enough to get the cancel in. The roar timers today, well, for this season, for Silent Season, 209, 126, and 38. That's based upon the time you see in the top left corner. Everything else is, like I said, pretty much just spam and keep it going. I am using Black Widow as the striker. Black Widow seems to be the best striker for ABX on a whole. So by using her, I noticed that my score tends to be a little bit higher. I do have her built as a tier 4 with a rage. Building your striker does make a difference. You don't have to go for an instinct match. You can experiment with different strikers, but I have found that it seems to me like Black Widow is where it's at for today. So whatever you want to do. I like to do at least 5 runs with a new build / rotation before I decide if it's good or not. I don't think I would take anyone's word for anything in this game. Listen to advice, even myself. Don't take my word for it. Well, Blaze said, who cares? Who cares? Who cares what I said? You see it in action. You see what my account's capable of. Try it yourself. Experiment with different things from different people. I don't think anyone knows this game perfectly through and through. We just know it works for us, so we repeat it. And that's what I'm doing here. This has worked for me so far, so I'm repeating it. All right, last roar right here. Like I said, 38. He's going to jump center. Sometimes it's delayed like that. That's fine. As soon as he turns, I'm going to pop my 4, and then I'm going to pop my 7 and my 6. There we go. We got my last one in there. I'll talk about the team. I'll talk about alternate teams for today and different options that you can choose. And here we go. Last 19 seconds. I do a lot of videos that are almost the exact same because it is basically the same rotation with the same characters, because the characters that work you reuse. But that's why I'm doing videos like this, and I'm trying to tell you afterwards things that I've heard through the grapevine from other individuals. You see how that 2 shot me away, so it was hard to cancel. That's why you want to pay close attention to that too. Yeah, 14.1 million. It's not the greatest score in the world, and I might have been able to do 14.5, but I usually don't break 15 million with my Jean. So let me write that down, because I track my scores for progress. I recommend you do the same. I've got a nice Excel spreadsheet where I do that. 14,131,400. Yeah, okay. 483. Okay, so I always start this portion, and I do it in every video. I know it's repetitious, but here we go. I want these videos to be able to stand by themselves. Here are my cards. This is the card effects. If you... Oh, I left my rotation up on the screen. I'm sorry. Here are the cards. So if you want... Pause the screen, read those cards. Here are the X swords that I have. The reason I show all of this is I think it's important. So if you're trying to understand why our accounts score differently, you can see how my account is built. How your account is built should be dependent on how you try to build your characters. Notice that if you swap out cards and X swords, that might modify your builds. You might have to edit your characters. So with Jean is the Dark Phoenix uniform. I do have her at tier 4. The Dark Phoenix uniform. Here are the uniform options. Jean is a very expensive character, but she is great in PvP and PvE. You can use this rotation with a Rage, with a Judgment, with an Anger proc. Rage seems to be the best for her. Here are her gear. Everything is amplified. I do have a ton of Odin's Blessings on her. She's worth Odin's Blessings. You can also Make sure if you're going to use Urus, make sure they're at least 5 stars. I have, like I said, the Striker. I have Black Widow, and then I switch it back when I'm done running for today. Black Widow I pretty much use for any ABX day, unless I need the Striker for canceling. Then I would use someone else. So I've got an Overdrive on her. Any of the attack sets are fine. Just make sure there's 6 red stars. But Overdrive, Hawkeyes, Power of the Angry Hulk, you want that attack proc, and you want to maximize your ISO 8 set to get the most out of it. I've got an Order +7 on her for Artifact. I do have a Brilliant CTP of Rage, which is enraged, and it's rolled up to a 1.2%. Rage, normal rage is fine, but Reforging obviously is better, and you want the enraged option, in my opinion, versus the all-attack one. It just seems like it gives that extra boost going on. So that's my Jean. Let's talk about team. Let's talk about alternate teams, why I'm using the team I'm using, and who else you could possibly use for today. So going back in here to Arena, Alliance Battle. We're going to go to the extreme mode. All right, so I'm using Black Cat specifically with her uniform. That's Winter Criminal. So it is a seasonal uniform. Not everyone's going to have that. That's fine. But I'm only getting this leadership. 65% for all attack. Ignore target's dodge by 35. You do have other options that you can use. For example, you could use Proxima Midnight. Proxima Midnight, I do have her Dark Obsidian armor, but she does have this leadership ability, which gives her the ignore dodge and the critical damage increase. That's not the main reason you would use Proxima, though. I mean, obviously that's a decent lead, decent, not great, but mainly you want her for her uniform. For the Dark Obsidian armor has this uniform option. Supervillains are going to get increased damage dealt of 35%. That does affect the beast. You could also go with someone like Hela, 60% energy increase. That's a great leadership option as well. I'm using Morgan Le Fay. If you're going to use Morgan Le Fay, you absolutely 100% need the uniform. It is the uniform option that is giving her the buff. So universal type allies, which Jean Grey and Dark Phoenix is universal. We're going to get 35% all attack and 35% damage dealt, as well as removing all debuffs, which is better for PvP. I don't think it really does anything in PvE. Player versus player, player versus environment. So the Fallen Souls uniform, if you're going to use her. If not, you have to look into other options as well. And like I said, Proxima can also be a support if you have one of the other characters for a leadership position. You also have Mystique here. Mystique actually gives this passive. I don't even need to go into the character. This passive here, which does, again, damage dealt. So in this case, it's 40%. But as you can see, the 35-35, I think, is a better support option. And then the 65 is the highest leadership for today. So this is the team I would build. If you do not have Jean, who could you use instead? By the way, I do want to give a shout out to Enchantress here. If you have the War of Realms uniform, she does have this ability for supervillains specifically, 20% and 40%. I think the 35 and 35 is better, but 20 and 40% is not shabby. However, she doesn't really have a good leadership skill, as you can see here, so I don't really use her on my main team, but she is an option if you have that uniform. Other options for today, if you do not have Jean Grey, the only folks that I would consider is Titania, who is a self-lead. You could double support her. She does a really great job. Just be aware she's combat, so you can't use characters that are only affecting universal allies. So be aware of which characters you're picking. Make sure you read the skills for the bonuses and amplifications that you're getting. But she does pretty decent. She's not great. She's not optimal, but you could use her. You could also use Supergiant. Now, Supergiant needs to have both a lead and a support. She is universal, so technically she could use the exact same team as Jean Grey, but she has fallen off. If you're going to use her, use a Judgment. If you're going to use Titania, use a Rage, in my opinion. In both cases, they're okay characters, but they're far, far less damage than using Jean Grey. Now, if you don't have the Dark Phoenix uniform, all for other uniforms are hero uniforms, so this is the only way you can use Jean for today. So you would have to pick one of the others if you can't use her. So that's my opinion. That's how I go about playing today. Those are my alternate options. Hopefully that was useful. May your ABX scores be as high as possible, and I will catch you in the next one.